The magical girl genre is one of the most well-known genres in anime and manga. However, there is a subgenre of magical girl that is becoming more and more popular nowadays, which is dark magical girl. Dark magical girl features the regular story of magical girls, but puts a twist on it and presents it in more of a darker or sometimes horror tone. In today's video, I'll be discussing how you can create your own dark magical girl manga, comic, or novel, and how you can apply these techniques to the story you're telling. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. It's time to turn your manga into a masterpiece. First of all, create a goal and consider what they would give to achieve this goal. A common theme in dark magical girl manga or anime is the fact that the characters will usually have a specific goal, a dream, or a wish that they want to be granted that they will do anything to achieve. Whether that is saving someone they care about, whether it's achieving a personal goal or dream, or whether it is doing something more important in the grander scheme of the world. You need to think about what your major character's dream is and then what they would give to achieve that goal. And then over the course of your dark magical girl story, you'll likely show various situations that challenge your character's dreams and beliefs and forces your character to make tough decisions regarding those dreams. By considering what your character would give up to achieve that dream, you make your character's goals seem more important, but you also increase the stakes of the story and make it more important that your character succeeds. This means that when your audience is reading your story, they'll be able to see these events and see the consequences behind your character's actions, and consequences are very important to keep in mind when it comes to dark magical girl. Number 2. Give them a powerful reason to fight. Alongside their dream or goal, you also need to consider why these dark magical girl characters are fighting in your story. So in this tip, you need to consider why your character has become magical and what is the purpose behind them having these abilities. Maybe there is some greater purpose in your story that your character was given these abilities to fight for. And then through your character's abilities and powers, you need to consider why they are fighting and what the purpose of this is. In many general cases in the magical girl genre, they'll usually be fighting against a really big bad enemy that could destroy the world, or they could be fighting smaller enemies around the world. They could also be just helping people in general and trying to make the world a better place. Now, this is dark magical girl that we're looking at, so in general it will look a little bit different. Your characters will usually be fighting against a bigger enemy, or they could be fighting against difficult or tragic situations in the world. There might be a lot of crime or bad situations throughout the world, and your character might be the only one who is able to stop it. In Magical Girl, the focus is more on the friendship and the kindness behind characters' actions, whereas in Dark Magical Girl, the focus shifts more to the darkness in the world, to the crime or the bad people that your character needs to stop. So in this tip, get to the point and understand why your character is fighting and give them a powerful reason to do so. Number 3. Use difficult moments to force character development. In a dark magical girl manga or story, there may be situations where they lose someone they care about. They might struggle during a battle scene, they might have to face dark or difficult situations in the world overall, or your character may need to make a really tough decision, which in some cases could be a life or death kind of decision. So in a dark magical girl story, the stakes are much higher, and if your character fails on a certain decision, there's going to be a much greater consequence than there would be in a regular magical girl story. In regular magical girl stories, the characters might, just hug each other and say, you did your best, but next time things might be better. In a dark magical girl, you don't really have that. If your character fails, then that is the consequence of your character's actions, and there'll be likely more difficult things for your character to face because of that. But when your character is faced with a difficult or sometimes tragic situation, this needs to force them to develop as a character. So by a certain event happening, does this mean that they push themselves into a situation where they can become that hero character? Even though they might be scared or nervous about what's up ahead, they still do it anyway. Or does this particular situation push them in the opposite direction? Maybe they become more of a villainous character, they see the darkness in the world, and they become a truly dark magical girl character. So in any of these difficult situations, you need to consider the situation and then how this changes your character in some way. And every time your character is faced with a difficult moment, you need to think about how this changes them as a character and what this means for their future in your story. Number 4, give them powers that come at a cost. A common theme in dark magical girl, manga, or anime is the fact that the use of their powers usually come at a cost, either to them or to the people around them. You need to consider what this cost is and how this might affect them in the story. Some common examples that usually might be seen in dark magical girl stories is that through your character consistently using their abilities, it might further drain them or may cost them their health in some way. It may cause them to see the darkness in the world more. Maybe they become less of a kind person because they're constantly faced with these difficult or dire situations. Through your character using their abilities, maybe it costs something with the other characters around them in some way. Maybe they gain energy to use their powers by something else in the world. So by them using their abilities, it takes away something else in the world. So just consider when your character is using their powers or abilities, what do they gain from using their abilities, but what do they also lose? What is the cost of them constantly using these abilities and powers? Number 5, craft designs that stand out and fit the theme. Understand what kind of dark magical girl story you wish to create for a particular type of target audience, and then craft designs that fit the theme of that story. Even if you're creating a light novel, you should still draw a rough sketch of your character's design. This can really help you to keep their design in mind as you continue to write your novel. If you're doing this with a manga, you can use this similar technique. Draw some sketches of your character's design before finalizing this design so you have a good idea of how this design should look in your story. As an additional note, if you're creating a manga, you may want to try a few different designs and choose a more simpler design for manga because you will be redrawing this design a lot. So it's important to not be too detailed so you overwhelm yourself with drawing it too many times. Create a design that both looks good and is easy enough for you to draw over multiple pages. Number 6, take magical girl themes and twist them. For this part, consider major themes in other popular magical girl series, such as themes of friendship, hope, or caring about the people around you, and think about how you can twist certain themes that is popular in Magical Girl and then show it in a different way in Dark Magical Girl. However, keep in mind that in Dark Magical Girl, it's not just about looking at these major themes and choosing the opposite of it. The Dark Magical Girl focuses on the consequences behind things rather than the thing itself. If you look at series like Madoka Magica, which is one of my all-time favorite animes, one of the major themes is about having hope in the midst of dark situations. And despite the fact that their world and their situations are rather dark or grim sometimes, this theme still carries through. So it's not about choosing the opposite of hope and focusing on that. It's about hope, but also about what the characters go through and still find that hope anyway. In the darkness, there is light, and that is a common focus of Dark Magical Girl. It's not about removing the light from the story, but it's about adding darker situations that help to focus on that light and bring that light to the surface. Number 7. Let your characters achieve something but lose something else. As I mentioned before, Dark Magical Girl is all about the consequences. When your character achieves something, it may mean that they need to lose something else. So to give you some examples, maybe your character finally wins a difficult battle that they've been trying to win, but they lose a friend that they care about very much. In another example, they may gain a new power or ability, but it might cost them something with their health in some way. So as your character goes about through their story, working to achieve the goal or the main plot of the story, consider what your character may gain along the way, but at what cost they gain these things. What do they lose by gaining these things? And by focusing on those consequences, you'll be able to create more dire situations in your Dark Magical Girl manga or novel. Number 8, get to the core of their emotions. The emotions and the feelings behind situations in your Dark Magical Girl story is one of the most important and key aspects to writing it. So as you're creating a scene, consider what your character is feeling in that moment and what other major characters in the scene are thinking or feeling, and how you can get to the core of those emotions. Thinking about how your character may feel in certain situations will help you to create more believable scenes. Number 9. Set the scene by creating a darker atmosphere. From the beginning of your dark magical girl story, try setting the atmosphere by focusing on more darker situations and settings. In typical magical girl stories, it will usually focus on a more light-hearted tone. You'll usually show more colourful settings, you'll usually show more happier situations or a happier environment, and overall the scenes and situation will feel more uplifting. In Dark Magical Girl, however, the situations will usually feel more darker, which is why it's called Dark Magical Girl. So in this particular example, you need to think about how you can present this type of atmosphere. Maybe you show it with the environment around your characters. Maybe there's a lot of difficult situations around, there might be a lot of crime, it might be a very difficult or dangerous place to live in, and you can show that to set the tone of your story. If much of this story is set in school, then you may show bullying at school or other difficult situations at school to set the tone. Atmosphere in a story can be created through how you describe a location if you're writing a novel, or in a manga, it can be shown through how you draw certain locations and how you add the tones or the background shading to those places. Atmosphere can also be shown through how characters talk to each other and how they interact. So if characters respond to each other in a darker way, it can create a darker tone, whereas if characters are more cheerful, it can create a more cheerful or uplifting tone. From the very start of you creating your Dark Magical Girl story, consider what kind of tone you want to get across for each scene and how you can best present that tone from the very start of that moment. You can even show it through your character's body language or expressions. If your characters seem gloomier, then the setting will also seem gloomier. However, in this tip, I'm not saying that you need to create a darker atmosphere all the time. But if you want to introduce a scene in your Dark Magical Girl story and you want this scene to feel more darker, you could consider creating a darker atmosphere in that scene as you are introducing it. However, you're also welcome to leave moments where you do create a more uplifting or cheerful tone, because as I mentioned before, Dark Magical Girl is not just about the darkness, it's also about the light within that darkness. Number 10. Consider where these characters are at the end. What have these characters gained or lost, and have they achieved the major goals of the story? By understanding how the story ends, you'll be able to better work towards that point. Number 11. Understand the morals, purpose, and themes. In many regular Magical Girl stories, there will usually be a main theme or message that the writer wants to get across to the audience. It might be about believing in friendship or believing in yourself, or striving to achieve a dream or goal, even if that goal seems really difficult. Dark Magical Girl stories are very similar. There will usually be a main message or theme which will be put across to the audience. So consider what kind of message or theme you would like to present in your story, and then try and include that theme in the situations in your story. Also understand that you don't necessarily have to have a theme or a message, but having a message or a theme can help you to relate that story to an audience. So it's optional, but it is something that you should definitely consider as well. Number 12, look beneath the surface. I think when it comes to writing Dark Magical Girl, it's important to not only focus on the darker elements, but also to look beyond the surface. Look beyond the surface level of Dark Magical Girl and use this setting and this style of storytelling to consider what's underneath the surface. Consider your character's true feelings or true emotions and the true overall meaning behind your story. Because it's not just about the darker events or the difficult moments, but through presenting those difficult moments or dire situations, you can reveal more about the true heart of that story, why your characters are there, why they're experiencing certain things, and overall, why this story can connect to you or a person reading your book. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what kind of Dark Magical Girl manga, comics, or novels you're creating, because I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!